The topic, Chris Godwin. The question, just how good is he? Let's just get into it. We'll start things off with this play. This play, he's running a route, it's a post route over the middle of the field. And so the player you see in the black circle, the Carolina player, that's going to be the defender who is going to be really in charge of covering Godwin on this play. It's zone coverage, but Godwin's going to be closest into his zone. Like, watch, right when this ball is snapped, notice how Godwin moves very far over and runs basically right in front of 26, the Carolina defensive back. He's running almost directly into him, but then he starts to look like he's about to make a move. And doing this, it's kind of selling to some degree that this might be a curl route. Godwin might be stopping. Jameis might be throwing it in his direction right now. It could also be something to the outside, and it could be, a route over the middle. Those are a lot of what these options are. But it's basically selling, okay, there's going to be a move at this moment. And what it's really doing is it's getting 26 to sort of come in a little bit. He sees that the move is getting made now, so it's probably not just a go route. So now I should break in and make a move. So that way when Godwin runs up to the top of the screen, he gets wide open. And that's an easy throw for Winston to make. And a lot of what Godwin does is little small subtle things like that. If you watch Godwin throughout the years, he's slowly becoming a better and better route runner. Part of me does wonder if playing with Mike Evans has something to do with that, as Mike Evans is one of the most subtle, good route runners in the NFL. However, unlike Evans, who uses his route running ability largely to beat man coverage, Godwin uses his route running ability to beat zone coverage. A lot of what he does is he gets himself into gaps in coverage. Like on this play, it's a cover 3 zone, and Godwin's route is a route that's pretty good against this type of coverage, as you can see. First things first, it's going to get into a gap in coverage past the linebackers, but in front of the safeties, so there is that advantage. Of course, the downside is that, there still are linebackers in the area, and while Winston will sometimes try to make those throws, definitely more often than he should, you still don't want to just have him trying to throw over a linebacker and getting it in between the safety. That's a difficult throw to pull off. What you instead want to do if you're a receiver is try to get in that gap in coverage in between the two linebackers in the middle of the field as much as possible. And watch how Godwin does that. Right when he cuts over in the middle, he slows down so much. That is definitely not a sprint whatsoever. And then he even breaks the tackle and is able to get way more yards. And that's another thing about Godwin, is his ability to make the more yards after the catch. He has great yards after the catch. He's very difficult to bring down. And if you have a guy that's difficult to bring down, don't just use him as a receiver. Use him in other ways, like a wide receiver screen. You see on this play, Godwin's moving up to the top of the screen, and it is going to be a wide receiver screen. Jameis gets the ball to Godwin. Godwin tries to run towards the end zone. It's pretty simple. You have a tight end and a tackle move out to block a couple of Rams in the area, and basically the defensive back covering Godwin, he's going to be the one that's closest to be trying to make a play, but since Godwin was in motion, this makes things a little bit easier. Once Winston gets the ball, gets it over to Godwin, you now notice that an LA player is in position where he can try to make a play. He can definitely try and make this tackle. And for a lot of lesser receivers, he probably would be able to make this tackle. However, for Godwin, he is much better at just being able to put his head down and run through defenders than most receivers. And that's what he's going to do here. Puts his head down, leans forward, and runs over a receiver, gets into the end zone, runs over a defensive back, gets into the end zone for a touchdown. It's things like that. The yards after the catch is definitely a big deal. But I don't want to completely give up talking about his route running against zone coverage either. Because again, I think a lot of people sort of assume that against zone coverage, a lot of times when you're getting yards that way, it's just because you're fast or because, it's a good route concept more so than you being good. But oftentimes it is a good, well-ran route that can help open up gaps in zone coverage. Like, this is a great example of that. So he's going up against cover 3. That's his route. It's going to be over the middle. And, so pretty much the exact same situation of the one I showed you 2 plays earlier. But what I like about this play is watch how far towards the outside Godwin is going to run. He actually runs even further closer towards the numbers than to the middle of the field, which is interesting. He ran away from the middle of the field. And this gets that New Orleans player who's, closest in that direction, someone who he's trying to make sure he gets as far to the bottom of the screen as possible. he's going over there to make sure that he's covering up Godwin's route. So he gets that player out of position. Now, New Orleans, they're too smart to get fooled on something like that. If you look at the player covering one zone up, he sort of realizes what's going on. He's going to then move over and try to make sure he takes away that gap, doesn't allow Godwin to get open. But once he does that, Godwin just runs up to where he was supposed to be. There's eventually a gap that Godwin can make the catch and run into the end zone and get the touchdown. Again, didn't come easy on that play. New Orleans made it tough, but he did a really good job and really well ran route. And of course, he has the speed to make up for it as well. And again, back to some subtle things like this play. Again, it's going to be cover 3. Godwin is running a quick curl route, and so that's the way this play is going to work. So you think this isn't anything too fancy, but what I like about how he runs this is, again, watch how he runs a little bit to the bottom of the screen, just a little bit, nothing crazy, but he runs a couple of steps in that direction while continuing to run deep. And what this does is that now you look at the New Orleans player who's in charge of covering him. He's a little bit off balance right now. He's further deep than Godwin, and he's further to the bottom of the screen than Godwin. And he's doing this because he saw Godwin was running in that direction, running towards the numbers, running towards the sideline. And so he's saying, well, I can't let him beat me in that direction. So he's already focusing on one thing, but that's not even the thing he should be focusing on, because as we know, that's not the route Godwin is running. So when Godwin starts to cut a little bit closer to the middle of the field, just a little bit, not even a cut, just slightly goes in that direction, the New Orleans player is going to say, oh, I got fooled. I have to run deep now because he's running a deep route and trying to gain some separation. And the second that happens, Godwin's able to cut, get separation, and make the catch. Again, just some subtle things, but a really good play and a really well-ran route. And that's what Godwin can do. And for Tampa Bay, it really is the perfect, match made in heaven, where you have Mike Evans, someone who you can't play man coverage against because he'll run right by you. And so you sort of have to, unless you want to double team Evans. But even if you are double teaming Evans, that leaves Chris Godwin with a one-on-one matchup in man coverage usually that means one safety's been taken away, which is not good. Or you can just play, zone coverage, but Evans isn't as dominant against zone coverage as he is against man, but Godwin is as dominant in zone coverage. So if you play zone, Godwin will feast, and if you play man, then Evans will feast, and if you double team Evans in man, well, then Godwin can still get open relatively consistently. And not to mention, they have plenty of other weapons. Like Tyler Johnson, they just drafted. I've been pretty high on him. I think he's going to be very good. With Tom Brady throwing him the ball, and also you got guys, tight ends, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate. Obviously, everyone's already talked about that, but I think that this team could be really difficult to stop, and a big piece of it, and one of the biggest pieces of it, is Chris Godwin. If he can just repeat what he did last year, he's instantly going to put himself in the top 5 wide receiver category. He was a top 5 wide receiver last year, but again, that's 1 year. We'll have to see if he can do it again. But I think he can. I think he's fantastic. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.